The sensor screen flickered with another false reading, and Rin dismissed it with a wave of her lower left hand, while her upper hands continued sorting through supply reports. Working at Watchpoint 7 meant endless boredom, punctuated by moments of absolute nothing. 300 years of monitoring empty space had that effect on a job. Her communications officer, a young Talvin named Des, yawned loudly across the room. The monitoring station orbited a dead moon at the edge of the Sol exclusion zone, that massive sphere of space surrounding the human home system that no vessel was permitted to enter. Every species in the galaxy knew the rules. Stay away from Earth. Stay away from humans. They were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized contact. Rin had read the reports 1,000 times during her posting here. The first contact disaster 3 centuries ago, when the Talvin diplomatic fleet approached Earth and human weapons tore through their shields like paper. Hundreds dead in minutes. The survivors barely escaped to tell the tale of humanity's savage nature. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to quarantine the entire species indefinitely. The sensor screen flickered again. This time Rin actually looked at it. Her 4 eyes widened simultaneously. A distress beacon, broadcasting on universal emergency frequencies, coming from deep in the Fringe Nebula. The automatic translation matrix parsed the signal and displayed text across her screen. Human vessel, critical damage. Life support failing, please help. Rin's blood went cold. She called up the origin coordinates and felt her heart sink further. The signal came from nearly 200 light-years beyond human space, far into the dangerous regions where only researchers and explorers dared venture. How had humans gotten out there? More importantly, what was she supposed to do about it? Administrator Tolas, her direct superior, reviewed the data with his usual methodical slowness. His scales had dulled with age, and his movements carried the weight of someone who had seen too many years of bureaucratic service. He read the distress message 3 times before speaking. "We do nothing," he said finally. "Sir, the emergency protocols require we render aid to any sapient being in distress," Rin protested. "The quarantine protocols supersede emergency protocols when dealing with humans. You know this." Tolas closed the data file with a gesture of finality. "We will log the signal and continue monitoring. That is all." Rin wanted to argue but held her tongue. Instead, she returned to her station and kept the human distress beacon on a secondary screen. Over the next hour, more data packets arrived. She learned the ship was called the Persistence, a research vessel studying how young solar systems formed. 12 crew members. Hull breach in Section 4. Main reactor damaged and leaking radiation. Life support at 40% capacity and dropping. The transmission included biometric data. Rin could see their vital signs declining in real time: elevated heart rates, dropping oxygen saturation, rising stress hormones. These were people dying slowly in the cold dark of space, and she was supposed to just watch it happen. By the second day, the Persistence crew had begun rotating who stayed conscious. 6 at a time would work on repairs, while the other 6 entered emergency stasis to conserve oxygen. The distress beacon now included personal messages, simple recordings meant for loved ones back on Earth who would never receive them in time. A woman named Amy spoke about her daughter, how proud she was of her recent graduation. A man called David recorded instructions for his brother on how to finish the renovations on their childhood home. Another person, younger sounding, named Peter, simply said he wished he had called his parents more often. Rin listened to every message. She began researching, pulling up old files from the Galactic archives. The official First Contact report painted humans as aggressive warmongers, but something about it felt wrong. The more she read, the more inconsistencies she found. On the 3rd day, she discovered something buried in a classified section she technically should not have accessed. The original sensor logs from the Talvin diplomatic fleet. She compared them against the official report and saw immediately that they did not match. According to the real logs, the Talvin fleet had approached Earth without any prior warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in massive warships directly above the human homeworld. The humans had broadcast hailing frequencies for 6 hours straight, trying every communication protocol they knew. The Talvin fleet, following outdated protocols, had not responded because they did not consider uncontacted species capable of meaningful communication. The humans had finally fired warning shots across the fleet's bow. The Talvin commander, interpreting this as an unprovoked attack, had returned fire. Only then did the humans unleash their full defensive capabilities, and only then did the Talvin realize their terrible mistake. But by that point, people were dying on both sides. The official report blamed humanity entirely. It erased 6 hours of attempted peaceful communication. It painted the warning shots as an unprovoked assault. It turned a tragic misunderstanding into justification for 3 centuries of isolation. Rin sat in the darkness of her quarters, the classified files glowing on her personal terminal. Outside her window, stars shone with indifferent beauty. Somewhere out in that vast darkness, 12 humans were dying because her species had lied about them for 300 years. She composed a message, simple, direct, sent through encrypted channels to an old friend who captained an independent freight vessel. The message contained 3 things: coordinates, the true first contact logs, and a single question. How many innocent people have to die before we admit we were wrong? Rin sent the message and waited, knowing she had just committed career suicide, knowing she might face criminal charges, knowing she did not care anymore because some things mattered more than rules built on lies. The distress beacon from the Persistence continued broadcasting. Life support was now at 20%. Time was running out. The sensor screen flickered with another false reading, and Rin dismissed it with a wave of her lower left hand while her upper hands continued sorting through supply reports. Working at Watchpoint 7 meant endless boredom, punctuated by moments of absolute nothing. 300 years of monitoring empty space had that effect on a job. Her communications officer, a young Talvin named Des, yawned loudly across the room. The monitoring station orbited a dead moon at the edge of the Sol exclusion zone, that massive sphere of space surrounding the human home system that no vessel was permitted to enter. Every species in the galaxy knew the rules. Stay away from Earth. Stay away from humans. They were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized contact. Rin had read the reports 1,000 times during her posting here. The first contact disaster 3 centuries ago, when the Talvin diplomatic fleet approached Earth and human weapons tore through their shields like paper. Hundreds dead in minutes. The survivors barely escaped to tell the tale of humanity's savage nature. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to quarantine the entire species indefinitely. The sensor screen flickered again. This time Rin actually looked at it. Her 4 eyes widened simultaneously. A distress beacon, broadcasting on universal emergency frequencies, coming from deep in the Fringe Nebula. The automatic translation matrix parsed the signal and displayed text across her screen. Human vessel, critical damage. Life support failing, please help. Rin's blood went cold. She called up the origin coordinates and felt her heart sink further. The signal came from nearly 200 light-years beyond human space, far into the dangerous regions where only researchers and explorers dared venture. How had humans gotten out there? More importantly, what was she supposed to do about it? Administrator Tolas, her direct superior, reviewed the data with his usual methodical slowness. His scales had dulled with age, and his movements carried the weight of someone who had seen too many years of bureaucratic service. He read the distress message 3 times before speaking. "We do nothing," he said finally. "Sir, the emergency protocols require we render aid to any sapient being in distress," Rin protested. The quarantine protocols supersede emergency protocols when dealing with humans. You know this. Tolas closed the data file with a gesture of finality. We will log the signal and continue monitoring. That is all. Rin wanted to argue but held her tongue. Instead, she returned to her station and kept the human distress beacon on a secondary screen. Over the next hour, more data packets arrived. She learned the ship was called the Persistence, a research vessel studying how young solar systems formed. 12 crew members, hull breach in Section 4, main reactor damaged and leaking radiation, life support at 40% capacity and dropping. The transmission included biometric data. Rin could see their vital signs declining in real time: elevated heart rates, dropping oxygen saturation, rising stress hormones. These were people dying slowly in the cold dark of space, and she was supposed to just watch it happen. By the second day, the Persistence crew had begun rotating who stayed conscious. 6 at a time would work on repairs, while the other 6 entered emergency stasis to conserve oxygen. The distress beacon now included personal messages, simple recordings meant for loved ones back on Earth who would never receive them in time. A woman named Amy spoke about her daughter, how proud she was of her recent graduation. A man called David recorded instructions for his brother on how to finish the renovations on their childhood home. Another person, younger sounding, named Peter, simply said he wished he had called his parents more often. Rin listened to every message. She began researching, pulling up old files from the Galactic archives. The official First Contact report painted humans as aggressive warmongers, but something about it felt wrong. The more she read, the more inconsistencies she found. On the third day, she discovered something buried in a classified section she technically should not have accessed. The original sensor logs from the Talvin diplomatic fleet. She compared them against the official report and saw immediately that they did not match. According to the real logs, the Talvin fleet had approached Earth without any prior warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in massive warships directly above the human homeworld. The humans had broadcast hailing frequencies for 6 hours straight, trying every communication protocol they knew. The Talvin fleet, following outdated protocols, had not responded because they did not consider uncontacted species capable of meaningful communication. The humans had finally fired warning shots across the fleet's bow. The Talvin commander, interpreting this as an unprovoked attack, had returned fire. Only then did the humans unleash their full defensive capabilities, and only then did the Talvin realize their terrible mistake. But by that point, people were dying on both sides. The official report blamed humanity entirely. It erased 6 hours of attempted peaceful communication. It painted the warning shots as an unprovoked assault. It turned a tragic misunderstanding into justification for 3 centuries of isolation. Rin sat in the darkness of her quarters, the classified files glowing on her personal terminal. Outside her window, stars shone with indifferent beauty. Somewhere out in that vast darkness, 12 humans were dying because her species had lied about them for 300 years. She composed a message, simple, direct, sent through encrypted channels to an old friend who captained an independent freight vessel. The message contained 3 things: coordinates, the true first contact logs, and a single question. How many innocent people have to die before we admit we were wrong? Rin sent the message and waited, knowing she had just committed career suicide, knowing she might face criminal charges, knowing she did not care anymore because some things mattered more than rules built on lies. The distress beacon from the Persistence continued broadcasting. Life support was now at 20%. Time was running out. Captain Bornus had spent 40 years hauling cargo across the frontier regions, and in all that time he had learned one important truth. The rules made by politicians sitting in comfortable stations rarely matched the reality of survival in deep space. So when Rin's encrypted message arrived during his supply run to the outer reaches, he did not hesitate. He diverted his ship immediately. The Grithian captain stood nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and tusks that had yellowed with age. His crew of 5 knew better than to question his decisions. They had flown together long enough to trust his judgment. When he explained the situation, gathering them in the small common area of their freighter, they voted unanimously to help. "We are one ship," his first mate pointed out. "How do we rescue anyone from that distance?" Bornis smiled, showing those old tusks. "We are not going alone." He began sending messages through the informal network that connected independent operators across the galaxy, traders who owed him favors, old military friends who had retired to civilian life, colonists he had helped transport to frontier worlds. The message was simple. Humans were dying. The Council was letting it happen. Anyone with a conscience and a ship should meet at specified coordinates. The responses started arriving within hours. A Halneary medical transport changed course, its crew of doctors and nurses declaring they would not stand by while sapient beings suffocated. A mining collective redirected 3 of their excavation ships, offering heavy equipment and spare parts. Colony ships, personal yachts, exploration vessels, even a Quellan passenger liner diverted from their planned route. Within 2 days, 47 ships had committed to the rescue. They came from 18 different species, united by something the Council had forgotten. That civilization meant helping others, even strangers, even those you had been told to fear. Back at Watchpoint 7, Administrator Tolas discovered the growing fleet through routine sensor sweeps. He immediately summoned Rin to his office. She entered to find him standing at his observation window, looking out at the stars with his back to her. "You sent that message," he said quietly. "Yes, sir." "Do you understand what you have done? Violating the quarantine is a criminal offense. You will face prosecution. Your career is over." "I understand." Tolas turned to face her, and Rin was surprised to see something like sadness in his old eyes. "Why? After all these years of loyal service, why throw it away for them?" "Because I read the real first contact logs, sir. I know what actually happened. We lied about humanity for 300 years, and I will not let innocent people die to protect that lie." "You think yourself a hero?" Tolas asked. "You think this changes anything? Even if you save these humans, the quarantine will remain. The Council will never admit the truth. Too much time has passed. Too many careers built on maintaining the isolation. You will have sacrificed everything for nothing." "Maybe," Rin admitted, "but 12 people will be alive. That is not nothing." Tolas called security. 2 guards escorted Rin to the detention level where she was placed in a small cell. Through the narrow window, she could still see stars. She wondered if Bornis and the others would reach the Persistence in time. She wondered if her message had been enough. The detention officer, a young Quellan named Tess, brought her a meal several hours later. As she set the tray down, she whispered, "My brother is on one of those rescue ships. Thank you for what you did." Rin nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Meanwhile, aboard the Persistence, Chief Engineer David worked alone in the damaged reactor room. The rest of the conscious crew slept in shifts, conserving oxygen. The ship's computer had calculated they had perhaps 4 more days before life support failed completely. After that, even stasis would not save them. David's hands shook from cold and exhaustion as he tried to seal another radiation leak. The protective suit he wore was damaged, offering minimal shielding. He knew he was accumulating a dangerous dose, but someone had to keep the reactor stable enough to power the distress beacon. If they stopped broadcasting, any potential rescuers would never find them. Peter Kim, the young navigator who had volunteered to stay conscious with him, appeared in the doorway. "Shift change. My turn to work on the reactor." "I am fine," David lied. "You are not fine. I can see you shaking from here. Take a break. Eat something, rest for 2 hours. Then you can come back and tell me everything I am doing wrong." Peter smiled despite their situation. David wanted to argue but knew the kid was right. He was making mistakes now, small errors that could become catastrophic. He climbed out of the reactor access tunnel and let Peter take his place. In the small galley, he found Dr. Reeves reviewing their remaining supplies. She looked up when he entered, and he saw the fear she was trying to hide behind professional calm. "How long?" she asked simply. "4 days, maybe 5 if we push the safety margins past all reason. We have sent out everything we can, personal messages, technical data about our research, even the recipe for my grandmother's apple pie because I wanted someone to know it existed." She laughed, a broken sound. "I keep thinking about all the things I will never do, never see my daughter graduate college, never finish writing that book about protoplanetary formation, never get to taste coffee again." David sat down across from her. "I keep thinking we came out here to understand how solar systems are born. We wanted to know how planets form around young stars. We found some amazing data before the Kresh attacked us. Real groundbreaking stuff about magnetic field interactions during planetary accretion. The data no one will ever see because we are going to die out here. Maybe, maybe not. We are still alive right now, still fighting. That has to count for something." They sat together in silence, 2 humans alone in the vast dark, refusing to give up hope even as time ran out. The rescue fleet gathered at the rendezvous point, and Bornus felt something he had not experienced in decades. Pride mixed with fear. 47 ships hovering in formation, representing nearly every major species in the galaxy except the Talvin who had started this mess. Each captain had risked their career, their livelihood, some even their freedom to be here. Dr. Vess, the Halniri medical director, opened a channel to his command ship. "Captain Bornus, we need to discuss approach strategy. My medical bays can handle perhaps 8 critical patients simultaneously. If all 12 humans need immediate intervention, we will require support from other vessels." "Understood. Any ship with medical facilities, coordinate with Dr. Vess. Everyone else, we need to assess what we are walking into." Bornus pulled up the latest data from the Persistence distress beacon. What he saw made his tusks grind together in anger. "The Kresh are still there," he announced to the fleet. "Their raider ship is maintaining position 3,000 kilometers from the Persistence. They are waiting for the humans to die so they can salvage the ship without a fight." Angry voices erupted across the communication channels. The Kresh had a reputation as scavengers and slavers, operating in the lawless regions beyond council jurisdiction. They preyed on the weak and helpless, and right now 12 dying humans qualified as both. "We cannot fight them," a Quellan passenger ship captain warned. "Most of us are unarmed civilian vessels. The Kresh warship will cut through us easily." "Then we do not fight," Bornus replied. "We negotiate." "Negotiate with Kresh. They respect only strength." "Then we show them strength through numbers. 47 ships moving together, declaring our intent to rescue those humans regardless of consequences. We broadcast on all frequencies so the entire galaxy knows what is happening here. The Kresh may be brutal, but they are not stupid. They will not want the political fallout of attacking a humanitarian rescue fleet." A mining ship captain spoke up, her voice rough from years of breathing processed air. "And if they attack anyway? Then we find out what we are really made of." The fleet began its approach to the Fringe Nebula. The journey would take 6 hours at maximum safe speed. Bornus used that time to organize his ships into a defensive formation, placing the medical vessels and lightly built craft in the center, while cargo haulers and mining ships formed an outer shell. It was not much protection, but it was something. In her cell at Watchpoint 7, Rin listened to the intercepted communications from the rescue fleet. Administrator Tolas had been monitoring their progress, and the audio feed played throughout the detention level. Rin suspected he wanted her to hear it, to understand the scope of what she had set in motion. She heard Bornus coordinating the ships, heard Dr. Vess organizing medical teams, heard captains from a dozen species arguing about approach vectors and rescue protocols. These were ordinary people, cargo runners and doctors and miners, doing something extraordinary because they believed it was right. Tess, the detention officer, stopped by her cell. "You started this," she said, not quite a question. "I sent one message." One message that became 47 ships. Tess glanced around to make sure they were alone. "My brother says they are scared but determined. He says they are doing this because someone needed to prove that the Council does not speak for everyone, that some of us still remember what civilization actually means." Before Rin could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. She heard running footsteps and shouted orders. Something had changed. Tolas appeared outside her cell minutes later, his scales flushed dark with anger. "You will want to see this." He gestured for Tess to unlock the cell, then led Rin to the command center. On the main display, 3 new ships had appeared on the sensors. Talvin military corvettes, fast attack ships designed for system defense. Rin recognized their configuration immediately. These were vessels from the home fleet, the most prestigious posting in the Talvin military. Who authorized this? Tolas demanded, but his staff had no answers. The lead corvette opened a communication channel, and a young Talvin commander appeared on screen. Commander Nevik, according to his rank insignia. He looked directly at Administrator Tolas with undisguised contempt. "We are here to ensure the rescue operation proceeds without interference." A group of junior officers accessed the same classified files Analyst Rin discovered. "We know the truth about first contact. We know our government has lied for 3 centuries. We will not let those lies cause more death." "This is mutiny," Tolas sputtered. "You are throwing away your careers, all of you." "Perhaps, but we are also doing what is right. The Kresh warship will not attack a rescue fleet protected by Talvin military vessels. The humans will be saved, and when we return home, we will make sure everyone knows the truth about what happened 300 years ago." Nevik's image disappeared from the screen. The 3 corvettes accelerated toward the Fringe Nebula, moving to join the civilian rescue fleet. Rin felt tears forming in her 4 eyes. She had hoped to inspire a few ships, maybe enough to reach the Persistence before the crew died. Instead, she had started something much larger, a rebellion against old lies, a demand for truth and accountability, a statement that compassion mattered more than political convenience. Tolas stared at the display showing the converging fleets. Finally, he spoke quietly. "Return to your cell. When this is over, there will be investigations, trials. They will come for all of you." "I know," Rin said. "It will be worth it." Back in her cell, she watched through her narrow window as stars slowly wheeled past. Somewhere out there, people were racing against time to save strangers they had never met. Whatever happened next, whatever price they all paid, 12 humans would live because ordinary beings chose to be extraordinary. That was worth any consequence. The Kresh warship looked like something built from scrap metal and bad intentions. Its hull was covered in mismatched armor plates, weapons pods bolted on wherever they would fit, and engines that glowed an unhealthy green. The ship held position near the drifting Persistence, a predator waiting for its prey to stop moving. When the rescue fleet emerged from the nebula's particle clouds, the Kresh captain opened a communication channel. His face filled the screens, a mass of scar tissue and cybernetic implants. He spoke in the harsh trade language used across the frontier regions. "Turn back, this salvage is claimed." Bornus responded immediately. "That is not salvage. Those are living people. We are here to rescue them under galactic emergency protocols." "Living?" the Kresh captain laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Check your sensors. Life support on that ship is nearly gone. They will be corpses within hours. Then the vessel becomes legitimate salvage under frontier law. We got here first. We claim it. Dr. Vess broke into the channel, her voice sharp with anger. Frontier law does not override the fundamental principles of sapient rights. Those people are alive now, and we will not abandon them to die so you can pick their ship clean. Principles? The Kresh captain's expression turned cruel. You talk about principles for humans, the quarantined species. Council law says they are not part of galactic civilization. They have no rights you are bound to respect. Leave now, or we will consider you hostile. The communication channel filled with voices as rescue fleet captains responded with fury. A Quellan passenger ship captain pointed out that the quarantine was imposed by the Council, not by frontier law. A mining collective representative argued that emergency protocols superseded all other regulations. Dr. Vess stated flatly that she would provide medical care to any sapient being regardless of their legal status. Through it all, the Kresh captain just smiled his terrible smile. Then Commander Nevik's corvette moved forward, the Talvin military vessel gliding into position between the Kresh warship and the rescue fleet. The two other corvettes flanked it, forming a protective screen. Nevik's transmission cut through the chaos. This is Commander Nevik of the Talvin home fleet. We are here to protect this rescue operation. The Kresh vessel will power down weapons and withdraw to a minimum safe distance, or we will interpret any aggressive action as an attack on a Talvin military unit. Choose wisely. The Kresh captain's smile faded. He knew the Talvin reputation. Their ships were fast, their weapons accurate, and their military command did not tolerate threats to their vessels. Even a patchwork warship like his would not survive against 3 corvettes working in coordination. You risk war over humans, over the quarantined species. He was stalling, probably calculating odds and escape vectors. We risk nothing. We simply enforce the law. Emergency rescue protocols are clear. You will comply or face consequences. For a long moment, nobody moved. The rescue fleet held formation. The Talvin corvettes kept their weapons locked on the Kresh ship, and in the middle of it all, the Persistence continued its slow tumble through space, life support failing, crew dying. Finally, the Kresh captain spat something vile in his own language and fired maneuvering thrusters. His ship began moving away, slowly at first, then faster as it accelerated out of the immediate area. He left the channel open long enough to snarl one last threat. The frontier remembers, the Kresh remember, this is not finished. Then he was gone, his ship disappearing back into the nebula's concealing clouds. Bornus released a breath he had not realized he was holding. All ships proceed with rescue operations. Medical teams prepare to receive patients. Engineering vessels prepare to stabilize the Persistence. We have work to do. The fleet moved into action with practiced efficiency. Dr. Vess's medical transport positioned itself alongside the Persistence, extending a flexible docking tunnel to create an airlock seal. Other medical ships moved into support positions. Engineering vessels deployed equipment to provide temporary power and life support to the damaged human ship. Inside the Persistence, alarms began sounding as external docking clamps engaged. David pulled himself away from the reactor controls where he had been working for the past 6 hours straight. His radiation suit's warning indicators were all lit up, telling him he had absorbed dangerous levels of exposure, but that did not matter anymore. Someone was here, someone had come for them. Peter helped him to the airlock, both of them moving slowly in the failing gravity systems. Through the small viewport, they could see the docking tunnel extending from the alien medical ship. They could see figures moving inside it, beings in environmental suits preparing to enter their vessel. Dr. Reeves appeared from the crew quarters, supporting one of the scientists who had been in stasis until a few minutes ago. Her voice shook as she spoke. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe they actually came. The airlock cycled open, and the rescue team entered. Dr. Vess came first, her Hal-Neary physiology allowing her to move in the low-oxygen environment without difficulty. Behind her came medical technicians from 3 different species, carrying equipment and supplies. Dr. Vess approached Dr. Reeves, and the 2 doctors studied each other for a moment. Then Dr. Vess spoke in carefully practiced human English. "We are here to help. How many need immediate medical attention?" Dr. Reeves started crying. She could not help it. After days of preparing for death, of writing final messages and rationing air and watching her crew slowly suffocate, someone had actually come to save them. Strangers from species she did not even recognize. Beings who had no obligation to help, who had risked themselves for humans they had never met. "All of us," she managed to say through her tears. "We all need help, and we are so grateful you are here." Dr. Vess placed a gentle hand on Dr. Reeves's shoulder, the gesture transcending species differences. "You are safe now. Let us take care of you." The medical bay aboard Dr. Vess's ship looked nothing like human hospitals. Equipment hung from the ceiling on flexible arms. The beds adjusted to accommodate different physiologies. Strange lights in colors David's eyes could barely process provided illumination that worked for multiple species simultaneously. He lay on one of those beds while a medical technician treated his radiation exposure. The technician was a small being with 6 delicate arms, each one working independently to administer treatments. She hummed while she worked, a soothing sound that crossed species barriers. Across the bay, Peter received treatment for hypothermia and oxygen deprivation. The young navigator kept staring around in wonder, trying to take in everything at once. Dr. Reeves occupied a bed between them, being treated for exhaustion and malnutrition while simultaneously arguing with a Hal-Neary doctor about proper medical protocols. "You need rest," the doctor insisted. "I need to check on my crew," Dr. Reeves countered. "I am the mission commander. That responsibility does not end just because we are being rescued. Your crew is being cared for by the finest medical professionals in this sector. You need to let us do our jobs so you can recover and do yours later." The doctor's tone was gentle but firm. Eventually, Dr. Reeves agreed to rest, though she made the doctor promise to wake her immediately if anyone's condition changed. Within minutes, she was asleep, her body finally accepting that the crisis was over. David watched all this with a strange sense of disconnection. Days of stress and fear had left him emotionally numb. He knew he should feel grateful, relieved, happy to be alive. Instead, he just felt tired. The medical technician noticed his expression and made a soft clicking sound. "Is common," she said in heavily accented trade language. "After survival mode, the emotions come later. For now, you rest. You heal. The feeling comes back when ready." On the command deck of his freighter, Bornus coordinated with the engineering teams working on the Persistence. The damage was worse than initial scans had shown. The hull breach had compromised 3 major sections. The reactor would need complete replacement. The life support system was barely holding together with temporary patches. "Can she be saved?" he asked his chief engineer. "Saved? Yes. Made spaceworthy enough for a journey back to human space. That will take weeks of work and parts we do not have. Then we tow her. The mining ships have equipment rated for moving asteroids. A damaged research vessel should be manageable." While those logistics were being worked out, Commander Nevik requested a private channel with Bornus. The Grithian captain accepted, curious what the young Talvan officer wanted. Nevik's expression was serious when he appeared on screen. "Captain Bornus, I need to make something clear. What we did here, disobeying orders to protect this rescue, will have consequences. My officers and I will face courts-martial when we return to Talvan space. We will likely spend years in military prison. I know. I am sorry you are facing that because of my actions." "Do not be sorry. We made our choice knowing the cost, but I wanted to tell you why we really came." Nevik paused, gathering his thoughts. The Talvin hierarchy has based 3 centuries of foreign policy on a lie about humanity. That lie has defined us, shaped how we see ourselves as the species that survived the human threat. Removing that lie threatens our national identity. And yet you came anyway. Because some of us believe truth matters more than comfortable lies. Because we looked at those classified files and saw our ancestors' mistakes being repeated. Because if we let innocent people die to protect our pride, then we are exactly the monsters we claimed humans were. Nevik's voice grew quiet. When this is over, when the trials happen and the investigations conclude, the truth will come out. It will be painful for my people. Many will not want to hear it, but it needs to be said. You are a brave person, Commander. I am a person trying to fix my ancestors' mistakes. That is all. In the Persistence's damaged corridors, a salvage team carefully extracted the scientific data the crew had gathered before the attack. Terabytes of observations about protoplanetary formation, magnetic field interactions, and stellar evolution. The research that Dr. Reeves and her team had risked their lives to collect. A Quellan data specialist named Harris worked on the damaged computers, carefully recovering every file. He had no particular interest in planetary science, but he understood the importance of preserving knowledge. These humans had come out here seeking to understand the universe better. The least he could do was make sure their work survived even if they almost had not. When he finally extracted the last data file, Harris took a moment to review some of the research. Even his limited understanding of astrophysics let him recognize this was groundbreaking work. These humans had discovered new mechanisms for how planets captured water during formation. They had documented magnetic field patterns that previous theories said should not exist. This was the kind of research that advanced entire fields of study. He packaged all the data carefully and sent it to Dr. Reeves with a simple message. Your work matters. The galaxy will be better for what you discovered. Back in the medical bay, Peter woke from his treatment to find David sitting beside his bed. The engineer looked terrible, his skin showing the effects of radiation exposure, dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking slightly. But he was smiling. We made it, David said simply. I keep expecting to wake up and find out this is some oxygen deprivation hallucination, but it is real. We actually made it. Because strangers decided we were worth saving, Peter added. Beings we never met, who had nothing to gain from helping us, who risked everything to get here in time. It changes how you see the universe, does it not? We spent so long isolated, told we were too dangerous for galactic society. Turns out there are good people out here, people willing to help even when it costs them. Dr. Vess approached them, carrying data pads with treatment information. You both need continued monitoring. The radiation exposure was significant and the oxygen deprivation caused some cellular damage, but you will recover fully. Your species is quite resilient. Thank you, David said, and meant it with every part of his being. Thank you for coming for us. Thank you for risking yourselves. Thank you for giving us a second chance. Dr. Vess made a gesture that might have been the Halniri equivalent of a smile. We did what anyone should do. Now rest, heal, and when you are ready, you can help us figure out how to end this ridiculous quarantine that never should have existed in the first place. News traveled fast across the galaxy, especially when it involved breaking a 300-year-old quarantine. Within days, every major news network carried the story. The rescue of the Persistence, the civilian fleet that defied the Council, the Talvin military officers who chose truth over orders, the classified files proving humanity had been wrongly isolated for centuries. Public opinion shifted like a massive wave. Species that had accepted the quarantine without question now demanded answers. Why had the Council maintained the lie? Who benefited from keeping humanity isolated? What other deceptions might be hiding in classified files? At Watchpoint 7, Administrator Tolas watched his career crumble in real time. Investigators from the council arrived to review every decision he had made regarding the quarantine. His defense that he was following established protocols meant nothing when those protocols were based on false information. When they asked why he had arrested Rin for sending the rescue message, he had no good answer. Rin was released from detention and found herself suddenly famous across the galaxy. Interview requests flooded in from dozens of news organizations. She declined them all, uncomfortable with the attention. She had not sent that message to become a celebrity. She had done it because people were dying and someone needed to act. The real hero, she kept telling anyone who would listen, was Captain Bornus and the 47 ship captains who had actually performed the rescue. She was just a communications officer who had sent a message. Bornus, meanwhile, had his own problems. His cargo hauling license was suspended pending investigation. Several governments wanted to prosecute him for violating the quarantine. Others wanted to give him medals for humanitarian service. The contradictions gave him headaches. He met with Dr. Reeves once the human crew had recovered enough to receive visitors. They talked in one of the medical ship's observation lounges, looking out at the stars while sipping beverages from their respective cultures. Bornus's drink was thick and bitter. Dr. Reeves's was something called coffee that smelled burnt to his sensitive nose. "What happens now?" Dr. Reeves asked. "To you, to Commander Nevik, to everyone who helped us." "Politics happens, trials, investigations, many speeches from people who did nothing while we did everything." Bornus shrugged his massive shoulders. "But the truth is out. That cannot be put back in the box. Humanity will not remain quarantined much longer. Because of what you did. Because of what we all did together. 47 ships, dozens of species, hundreds of individuals who decided that saving lives mattered more than following bad rules." He took a long drink. "The galaxy is changing. Sometimes change starts with one person making a hard choice. Sometimes it takes many people making the same choice at the same time." Dr. Reeves looked out at the damaged Persistence, now being towed slowly toward the nearest repair station. "We came out here to study how planets form. We wanted to understand the basic processes of stellar system creation. We never expected to become the catalyst for ending 3 centuries of isolation. Life rarely goes as expected, but you did good work. The data you collected will advance planetary science significantly. Harris, our data recovery specialist, says your findings about magnetic field interactions are revolutionary. That research nearly cost us our lives. Most worthwhile things do. The question is whether the cost was worth paying. You have to answer that for yourself." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, 2 beings from different worlds finding common ground in survival and gratitude. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed with delegates from hundreds of species, all demanding answers about the quarantine and the first contact incident. The proceedings were broadcast live across the galaxy. The council leadership tried to maintain control, but the evidence was overwhelming. Commander Nevik had released the classified first contact files to multiple news organizations. Independent analysts had reviewed them and confirmed their authenticity. The Talvan hierarchy could not deny the truth anymore. After 3 days of heated debate, the council voted to lift the quarantine on humanity. Not gradually, not with conditions, but immediately and completely. Earth would be invited to send diplomatic representatives to the council. Human ships would be allowed to travel freely through galactic space. The 300-year isolation was over. On Earth, the announcement caused celebrations in every major city. Humanity was finally part of the galactic community. But for Dr. Reeves and the Persistence crew, the news came with mixed feelings. They were glad the quarantine was ending. They were proud that their near-death experience had helped make it happen, but they also knew the cost. Commander Nevik and his officers were court-martialed as promised. The Talvan military tried to make an example of them, handing down harsh sentences. But public pressure from both Talvan citizens and other species forced the hierarchy to reduce those sentences significantly. Nevik would serve 2 years of restricted duty instead of 20 years in prison. His career was still over, but his life was not. Rin received a formal reprimand and was removed from her position at Watchpoint 7. She did not mind. The station was being converted into a diplomatic outpost, and she was offered a new role as the official liaison between the Council and Earth's diplomatic mission. She accepted immediately. Captain Bornus found that being famous had its advantages. The governments trying to prosecute him backed off when public opinion overwhelmingly supported him. Several major shipping companies offered him lucrative contracts. He turned them all down and went back to independent cargo hauling, though now he had no trouble finding work. Dr. Vess and her medical team received commendations from the Halneary Medical Association. More importantly, they received personal thank you messages from all 12 Persistence crew members. Dr. Vess kept those messages in her personal files, reading them whenever she doubted whether her work made a difference. 6 months after the rescue, Earth's first diplomatic vessel arrived at the Council station. Among the delegates was Peter, the young navigator who had refused to give up hope even when death seemed certain. He had volunteered to represent humanity because he believed in what the rescue had proven: that sapient beings, human or alien, were capable of extraordinary compassion when they chose to see each other as people rather than threats. Rin met him at the docking port, and they shook hands in the human custom. Then she led him toward the council chambers where a new chapter in galactic history was about to begin. A chapter built on truth instead of lies, on connection instead of fear, on the simple idea that helping each other survive the vast cold universe was what civilization actually meant. Behind them, through the observation windows, stars shone with infinite possibility.